Hey everyone, Dean Somerset here. A couple of weeks ago I put up a post on the Tibialis Posterior and its importance as far as like foot strike, tripod foot, how to get balance out of things and make sure your knee's in a good position. We're going to go through a little bit of a visual today. So I'm going to talk about how to avoid having flat feet, what to do if you have flat feet, and also some different ways you can do soft tissue release work on Tibialis Posterior. Got Dominique here on the table. We're going to show you what area of the body the tib posterior is in. So if we were to pull our foot up like this, the tib posterior runs pretty much right on the back of the ankle, all the way up the back side of the calf. So the tib anterior runs on the front side here. These two muscles, don't tilt the camera, man, just keep it flat. These two muscles cause the foot to kind of stabilize and move side to side like this. So if that tib posterior is tight, what you'll see is that the foot will curve in like this. If that foot hits the ground in terminal stance when you're on the ground, it's going to curve the knee back this way to be able to get the foot to be solid on the ground. So if we have that tib posterior really tight, it's going to affect the knee, it's going to affect the hip, it's going to go all the way up that chain. So an easy way to tell if you have a really tight tib posterior or not is just let the foot hang. Normally, like Dominique has right here, it hangs straight down. If someone's got a really tight tib posterior, they'll see it with no tension on it, it's kind of curled in like this. So if that tib posterior is tight, it's going to affect everything going up and down the line just by having that tib rotate to have the foot hit the ground flat. Now if you're someone who's into soft tissue work or manual therapy or anything like that, if you feel on the inside of where the tibia is just before it hits into the calf muscle, the gastroc, just between those two, that's where the tibialis posterior would be. And if you were to dig in there, you could get a really good release on it. I'll show you a soft tissue or a self-myofascial release way that we can work easier, but essentially it's going to be right in there, and then if you put a little pressure on it, turn the ankle out and kind of dig into it, that's where you're going to be able to find some of that soft tissue release work. Now, let's see if we can talk about what that does with the foot. If we look at Torian here, get you to zoom down onto Torian's feet. If, let's say the tib posterior is really good and solid, it's going to hold that foot in a nice neutral position. If it's weak or lax or something's going on, we're going to have kind of a foot drop here. So a flat foot comes from 2 or 3 different ways. One, the naviculus, which is a bone just in front of the talus here. It tends to drop down if there's no muscular support holding it in place. 2, we'd have something called calcaneal eversion. So if you turn around, if we look at how his Achilles tendons come down and what happens at his ankle, you can see how his ankle kind of curls out this way. So in that situation, it might be a little bit of laxity in the ankle, it might be laxity in the forefoot, it might be a whole bunch of different things going on. So if we've got a tib posterior that's not functioning properly and not strengthening to hold everything up, and also the plantar fascia muscles aren't holding everything tight to be able to form an arch, he's going to collapse and dive down, and we can actually see it visually diving down. That naviculus just drops down and the calcaneus just turns out and curves this way. So whenever he hits the ground on his foot, instead of being vertically loaded bone to bone, he has kind of a rotational effect going on. So every time that foot hits the ground, he's got some sort of rotation happening. Now that could lead to a whole bunch of stress going up and down that tibialis posterior, as well as plantar fasciitis, as well as lost power coming from the ground transfer. So a whole bunch of things could be going on there. Get you to come over onto the mat. I'll show you a quick little SMR. So laying on your stomach, all you're going to do is take this little ball. You can use a lacrosse ball, street hockey ball, anything like that. What I want you to do is find that area just on the inside of your shin and kind of dig through that sucker with your leg out to the side. So where he's going to try and set the ball is in that same location between the tibia and between the calf. He wants to get right into the meat of that nitty-gritty sucker. And if he can bring his leg out to the side like this, then we stretch the fascial chain connection going from the adductor muscle group down in through that tibialis posterior, down into the ankle. When he finds it, he's found a good little happy ball of pain right in there, right, Tori? A little bit of happiness. Just pause on it, don't move, and I want you to pull your toe up and then turn your foot out this way to get more of a stretch into the area. So if we can tension the muscle while we're doing compression work, we get more of an effect out of it. Now hold that and slide. Find that tension spot and just kind of hang out in there. A little bit of happiness? Yeah, buddy, a little bit of happiness. A whole lot of happiness going on there. So if that's irritated, or if that's stretched out, tight, or not doing what it's supposed to do, that foot's going to have some issues. Get you to come on up again. Now we're going to work on a concept of a tripod foot. So if we think of the foot as having a heel, big toe, baby toe, these are the 3 points of contact that we're going to have primarily in contact with the floor whenever we're trying to do anything. As far as how we're balancing, we're weight shifting, where our load is going to be placed, we want to think of getting that solid tripod foot, but also creating an arch structure through our foot that's going to be able to transfer force from the ground through the rest of the body. So if we come back down to Torian's feet right now, go through a squat, just one little body weight squat, and see what happens with his feet. So come back up, do that one more time. Now, if he's squatting under any kind of load, the fact that his feet are turning in and out and kind of collapsing down like that means the foundation that he's pushing off of isn't as strong as it should be. So if we were to put any kind of a load on that or any kind of speed, the first thing that would happen, do that again, is his knees are going to try to dive in. He's going to get a valgus stress on his knee. And if the knee is only designed to move in this plane, if it starts moving outside of that plane, that's where knee injuries happen. Compensation, we get hip action going on, compensation lower back action going on. So it's all starting at the feet. And anytime we see the feet moving when he's not moving or not trying to move, something's going wrong. So what we got to do is try and get him a solid base of support to push off of. We can see he's got pretty much pancake feet going on right here. We can barely get a knuckle underneath. Ideally for an arch, we want to be able to get at least a knuckle and a half underneath that arch structure to be able to say, yeah, you actually have somewhat of an arch. So we can do a couple of different things here. First, lift your toes up. He's having a little bit of issue getting his toes up because he's probably a little bit tight through the plantar fascia. Hold the toes up, and I want you to think sliding the ball of your foot back towards your heel. Try to contract and create that arch structure, okay? When you're in that spot, bring your toes down, and I want you to grip and rip the floor. Good, not to roll your foot, but to keep the foot down. And I want you to think, flex the foot, like this. Not like you're curling your toes, not curling the toes, but trying to bring the ball of the foot towards the heel. So create tension here. Good, and you can see he kind of rolled out a little bit on that foot. So now he's got a little bit more of an arch. Do the same thing on this one. Create that tension just through the ball of the foot right here. You want to turn your foot out just a bit. There you go. So see how you're creating tension through that plantar fascia? It feels tense, right? We're holding gripping strength onto the floor. Press your toes down into the floor and work on that tripod. So heel, ball of the foot on the big toe, ball of the foot on the baby toe. All three of those points should be pressing equally into the floor. You feeling it? Now you feel tension through your foot? Good. So you should have a little bit more arch here. He's got a little bit more. He's got a little bit more here. It may not be 100% perfect yet, but it's an improvement over what he was doing. Hold that arch position in your foot. Now show me a squat. It's going to be a little bit more work, and you got to think about it a bit more. Okay, and back up. So you can still see he's trying to dive down with his foot here, and that's taking a little bit of brunt. So I want you to come back into it a little bit more. So get up and drive that big toe, that ball of that big toe down in the floor really hard. Get up, get up, get up, right there. Drive that sucker down hard. And now I want you to try and create space between your feet. I want you to think like you're pulling the ground apart with your feet to get a little bit of upkick from your hips here and to be able to get a bit more of an arch, but keep your toes on the floor. Good. More space on here, a little bit up there. So the key on this to think of is that we're taking the ball of the foot and pulling it back towards the heel so we can kind of create that arch structure out of the foot. If we have that solid arch, that's going to create the foundation where we're going to be able to push from. Create that solid arch. We can actually see he's creating a little bit here, definitely creating more here. And I want you to go through that squat again and try to pull the floor apart as you go through it. Good, good, good. You're holding a lot better now. He's not getting the depth yet, but again, this is a work in progress. I don't want to do everything all in one shot. So what we talked about was tibialis posterior, if that's an issue. If we can release that, he'll be able to squat a little bit better. Then trying to get that tripod foot down, and on top of that, trying to create some sort of an arch structure out of the foot. For a lot of people, if they can get an arch structure and a tripod foot, that's half the battle for anything where their foot's in contact with the ground. If you're able to get this kind of a structure down, then we're going to be able to develop power on top of it, some speed, some strength, and just get you going beast mode in the gym a little bit easier. So that's all for today. Hopefully this was good. Drop a comment below this in the section. Let me know if you thought it was all right. Have a good day. Thanks, dude.